When growth stalls, most leaders reach for surface fixes like new campaigns, a sharper sales deck, even new hires. But the real issues are often deeper, such as misaligned systems, broken handoffs, or unreliable data. That's why we built the Growth Readiness Score. In just 5 minutes, you'll get a clear score across 4 critical areas of your revenue operations and see how you stack up against your peers with benchmark data. Tap the link in the show notes to get started. It's quick, insightful, and often reveals issues leaders don't expect.
Where I see alignment be really, really important is in a couple of things. One is culture, which really is values, right? If people are not aligned on their values, good luck. It will fall apart really, really quickly. So that's a whole other podcast probably.
Yes.
But then really aligned on the vision. Like, where do you want to go? Who are we? Who do we want to be when we grow up? What is our impact? And that needs to be revisited every 3 years, every 5 years, because the market changes, you change, longevity of people in the company changes. And so staying current with the vision, it does not happen in isolation. It happens in a conversation with your marketplace. So I think alignment on vision is really important. Obviously, as I said, culture and values. Those are kind of the main two things. Because if you can get aligned on vision, then some of the numbers stuff plays out. It's interesting. What I'm not saying is alignment on how you do things. I think you have what I would consider to be a unique ability team. You want to do it according to your core values, but then whether or not it's this process or that process, every company is going to do it a little bit differently. As long as it's the best solution for this moment in time to get where you want to go, have at it. And that's part of the process. So really it's values and vision. Those two things in my experience are the make or break. If you're aligned on them, great. You have a very strong percentage chance of success.
You're listening to RevOps Champions, a podcast created for B2B leaders to help you align your people, streamline your processes, trust your data, and leverage technology in order to grow your business. Welcome back to the RevOps Champions podcast. Today, my guest is Shannon Waller, an expert on entrepreneurial teamwork. Shannon has honed her unique expertise as strategic coach since 1991. She's the creator of the Entrepreneurial Team Program, a trusted coach, speaker, author, and podcast host known for helping entrepreneurs build aligned, high-performing teams, which is why I wanted to have her on the show. Shannon is the author of the Team Success Handbook and Multiplication by Subtraction, and co-author of Superpowered and the best-selling book, Unique Ability 2.0 Discovery. She hosts the Team Success podcast and co-hosts Inside Strategic Coach with Dan Sullivan. As a Kolbe certified consultant and recipient of the Kolbe Professional Award, Shannon brings deep insight into how teams grow, adapt, and succeed. Shannon, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Brendan. Thrilled to be here.
Shannon, what originally drew you into working so deeply with entrepreneurial teams?
That's so interesting. I have always been passionate about people in business. And since I was 18, so when I went to school, I studied every kind of industrial psych, business sociology, all the things. And I grew up in sort of a personal development family, 70s, the whole, discovering yourself kind of deal. But to my mind, business was fascinating. And I think, and when I met Dan Sullivan, co-founder of Strategic Coach, it really made sense because in an entrepreneurial world, there is no mediation between you and the world. You get feedback on the 15th and the 30th of every month as to whether or not what you're doing is creating any value in the world. So it is the best learning place, school, whatever you want to call it. School's not my favorite word, but learning environment to develop yourself both professionally and personally. So I've always found it interesting, always found business people interesting, but it's people in business that I find fascinating. So I love it. It means I have been pursuing my passion and finding this fascinating and motivating for 42 years. That's a long time. And I started off my career actually working with a company, a smaller company, but whose main clients were, actually it was General Motors of Canada. Next to the government, the largest bureaucracy. So that was my experience with large institutions. And then Dan and Babs, co-founders of Coach, used to rent seminar room space for this from this little company, and they work with the total opposite, which was entrepreneurs. And I noticed immediately just how different they were. They'd be like coming into our workshop space and talking, and then they're like, "Hi, I'm Bob. What's your name?" And I'm like, "You didn't know each other already?" Like they're so gregarious and so out there and so I don't know, just alive. I'm like,
Hmm.
"Ooh, that's interesting." So when they approached a friend of mine and then me to come and work with them, it was an easy yes to switch gears. So that was 1991, long time ago.
Yeah, which and that topic on its own, the differences between what attracts people to entrepreneurial businesses and what attracts people to more sort of bureaucratic corporation type businesses is really interesting. And I know you've done a lot of work
Yeah.
in that space.
One quick thought on that. When I left university, I think I sent out 7 resumes. Most people send out hundreds
Hmm.
because there were so few people. I was a little naive. There were so few places that I wanted to work, and I knew I needed to end up somewhere where I knew that what I did made a difference. I can't be a cog in a machine. I had to know that what I did either impacted something positively or not. Like
Hmm.
I need that feedback. And so that's really why I ended up, I think, in both companies I've ever worked with, both entrepreneurial and both started off smaller. Coach is no longer small.
Yes, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, so you're celebrating 35 years this year with Coach. That is
Right.
unbelievable, right?
I know. I mean, who does that anymore?
Yeah. Well, but also just, I mean, if I think about all the entrepreneurial businesses that you've had an impact on and have been able to, have worked with, I mean, your insights and learnings must be second to maybe only one other person.
Well,
But
thank
yeah,
you. I
yeah,
mean, I hope that's true. At the same time, I'm always aware of how much more there is to learn, and I don't mean that from a being in the gap standpoint, but
sure.
it is something where I do know a lot, and I can provide insight, hopefully, into a lot of things. And then there's also other things I'm like, I need to learn more about this. Like right now, I'm exploring different decision making models and conflict resolution. I'm like, I need to know more about those things. Right. So I know a lot about unique ability teamwork, leadership. That's current journey I'm on. So
Hmm.
there are always new things to explore and get deeper wisdom and experience with for sure.
Right. So, Shannon, before we sort of, I want to talk a little bit more about the teamwork piece because
Mhm,
I do believe that is as do you. I know is such a foundational piece of businesses being able to scale successfully.
mhm.
But before we go there, though, like as I mean, you've seen so many companies go through these incredible growth phases. Where do you most often see alignment in those companies break down that is holding them back from growing and scaling?
Interesting. Well, there has to alignment. Couple different ways to answer that question. Where I see alignment be really, really important is in a couple of things. One is culture, which really is values, right? If people are
Hmm.
not aligned on their values, good luck. It will fall apart really, really quickly. So that's a whole other podcast, probably.
Yes,
Though.
yes.
But then really aligned on the vision. Like, where do you want to go? Who are we? Who do we want to be when we grow up? What is our impact? And that needs to be revisited every 3 years, every 5 years, because the market changes, you change, longevity of people in the company changes. And so staying current with the vision, it does not happen in isolation. It happens in a conversation with your marketplace.
Mm.
So I think alignment on vision is really important. Obviously, as I said, culture and values. Well, yeah, those are kind of the main two things, actually. Because if you can
Hmm.
get aligned on vision, then some of the numbers stuff plays out. It's interesting. What I'm not saying is alignment on how you do things. I think
Mm.
when you have what I would consider to be a unique ability team, you want to do it according to your core values, but then whether or not it's this process or that process, every
Mm.
company is going to do it a little bit differently. As long as it's the best solution for this moment in time to get where you want to go, have at it. And
Mm.
that's part of the process. So really it's values and vision. Those two things in my experience are the make or break. If you're aligned on them, great. You have a very strong percentage chance of success. And if
Mm.
you are not, it will break. Promise.
Yeah, and that makes total sense because if you can align those two, values and vision, to your point, you keep communicating that over and over again. Essentially, what you're impacting is mindset, right? So,
Exactly.
and we hear and we talk a lot about the importance of mindset in entrepreneurial businesses. and again, how they differ from more sort of bureaucratic larger companies. How do you help leaders and teams take the first steps towards moving into the right mindset?
That's a real lots of ways. Often by helping them realize that they do have a mindset, right? We think we are the water we swim in, right? If we think the world is a friendly place, we'll operate according to that mindset. If we think it's hostile, we'll operate. And we think that the world is that way. So we don't think to bring attention like, I think the world is out to get me. Do you think that too? No one says that. They just
Hmm.
act that way. And you're like, dude, what's going on?
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And so we don't, it's, we're fishing, that's our water. So pointing it out to people, and this is one of the things that strategic coach is so brilliant at, Dan Sullivan is so brilliant at, endeavor to be good at, is pointing out people's mindsets to them. So it's interesting when I wrote the Team Success Handbook, it was really putting into book form an exercise I've been coaching called the entrepreneurial attitude. Well, attitude
Mm.
is mindset. Because I was coaching people in the team programs and some of it was sinking in about this much. And I'm like, this is too much. This is hard. What's going
Yeah.
on? Then
Yeah.
I realized some people were receptive, like it was fertile soil, and other people were like, yeah, no, not interested. And so then I had to call out, how are you thinking about this? And make
Mm.
that distinction between in an entrepreneurial environment, you need to be focused on creating value. You need to have patience and compassion. You need to not give up, you know. And I
Mm.
like it because when you can actually present those set of mindsets to people, they'll either go, great, I'm going to score 4 or 5, or they're like, yeah, no, this is not how my world works. And
Mm.
they will I'm not gonna say they fire themselves, but I do know people who slide the book across the interview table. Kelly Knight, integrator of EOS worldwide, she's like, she gives them the book,
Mhm.
digital format or whatever, and goes through the exercise and go, this is what we want from you. If this is not who you are, do not join EOS worldwide.
Mhm.
So it's when you point it out to people, but you have to delineate it. You have to put it into language. And one of the best ways Dan's figured out to do this is you figure out your best case with your best examples of a client or team member or whomever and your worst, and then you identify what are the mindsets of my best people, and then the worst people should be the counter to that, and that
Mhm.
gives you your scale.
Mhm.
And then with every new person you add in up to maybe 8 mindsets. And
Mhm.
that's actually what gives you your set of them. There's actually 12 entrepreneurial attitudes. I didn't call
Mhm.
it 8 rule, but and then you point it out to people and they're like, "Oh yeah, I do think this," or "I don't think that." It's very clarifying. So that's how I do it. We put it into language and we give people a scale and they can grade themselves. And it's funny, Brendan, because people are weirdly honest. Like there's
Mhm.
one version where there are 4 different columns, and the column 2 is like not very positive, but people will answer it, "Yep, this is the way the world is," because
Mm.
you've actually spoken it in their words to them, and they'll go, "Yep, that's me." And you're like, "Oh Lord, that's not who we want," but okay.
Mhm.
People don't game it as much as you might expect. When you can really put language to people's experience and thinking really is what this is, they will answer honestly.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which again, it seems so simple, but it is something that so many companies struggle with. Is I know, and you again, I'm preaching to the choir here, but because you've heard this thousands of times over the last couple of decades of entrepreneurs in your coaching rooms sharing examples of how they hired people and it didn't work out, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And in fact, I think we talked about this last week.
Mhm.
How one of the reasons for that, and I thought this was a really good perspective of yours, which was because because as entrepreneurs we're also really selling, and we end up selling this amazing future with our company.
Mhm.
And when the person that you're interviewing for a potential position says, "Oh, that sounds great," you go, "Oh, well, come on," without actually verifying and validating that they can do all these things that they need to do to be successful, right?
Exactly. Where we were talking about hiring and why we should not be in the initial or second or maybe even third interview. At the
Exactly.
very end, after they've jumped through all the hoops, then maybe because we're just too darn good. And I have actually been kicked out of first interviews very strategically. It was a good thing that they did that.
Yes.
And here's the interesting thing. We assume like we get entrepreneurship. We get why it's so fabulous. It is incredible. It is the best place to learn and to grow and to take on responsibilities and all the things that we find valuable. But other
Mm.
people don't necessarily have either that experience or that mindset. And so that assumption can cost us. And the biggest difference, and I think I've done a podcast about this on team success, but if not, I'll do another one. When
Mhm.
we hire people in from a bureaucratic or corporate, that's more likely we'll hire someone in from a corporate environment. The language of business is the same. The meaning is different. And so they come at it from a very top down, not marketplace bottom up or team bottom up way. And they will impose their structures. And sometimes for an entrepreneurial company that's growing, that extra structure looks really cool. They're like, oh, you're going to do something, something plan. You're going to lay out this. You're going to lay out this process. Oh, great. We could use one of those. What
Mhm.
you don't realize, though, is it's not coming from the right place. It's
Yes.
not coming from, we talk about a coach, understanding the goals, the dangers, the opportunities, and the strengths of your marketplace or your team for that matter. And
Mhm.
so it doesn't work. It doesn't land. We've hired now 4 people from the outside. Can I say that?
Mm.
From basically from corporate environments, 3
Mhm.
of them years ago, and none of them lasted longer. Most of them didn't last a year. One lasted a year and a half. And then just one person we brought in, and I finally realized, oh my gosh, she's so corporate, and that's why it's not landing. And then she started converting a couple of people in the company to that way of thinking too, and then it got worse and worse. I was like, oh
Mm.
no. So yeah, please don't do that. It's better to take people and grow them, or just be super, super clear on your standards and again your values, and be rigorous, be even a little ruthless if you have to be, because
Yeah.
one person can mess that up really, really, really big. So yeah, so really understanding the fact that corporate mindset is very different than entrepreneurial mindset.
Mm.
Again, but it sounds the same. So in an interview, someone's going through their resume, their CV, it sounds amazing. And you
Yeah.
could have this sophisticated conversation. They're coming from a different place. Now, if
Right.
they hated corporate and they can't wait to be more entrepreneurial, maybe you would have continue to have the conversation. But if they loved it and they just want to bring that over to you, I would start getting a little
Yeah.
heebie-jeebies. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, you still want to validate that, right? And again, preferably have somebody else who's not just excited to hire the next person to
Yeah.
validate that.
And don't get seduced because someone has more structure or more systems thinking or more of that top down.
Mhm.
There's a balance. Entrepreneurial companies are usually not the most structured of life, and so that kind of is we can know that that's something that we're missing. Shorter follow through, to use a Colby term.
Mhm.
But we can get a little seduced into thinking that, oh, this person's going to come in and do that. What you don't know is they'll make things rigid. They'll shut down your new ideas. They won't let those new things happen. It'll hold back certain other people's growth. And so you'll lose some of that dynamism that is so precious. Again, there's a balance. I'm not saying you don't
Sure.
need any structure, but just be aware. Just be really, really aware, and don't get suckered in.
Right. And again, of course, it's not very seldom is it their fault, right? Because that's how they've been educated, and then of course in their corporate
Yeah.
careers.
Yeah.
So I know one of these differences is like in a more corporate environment, you're measured on time and effort, right?
Yes.
Whereas and that which comes directly back to what you where you started, which is your values and your mindset.
Yeah.
If you have a if you have entrepreneurial values and mindset in a company where people are there for to produce results, and then you bring someone from the outside who is convinced that it's not about results, it's about how much time and effort they put in, that is a big disconnect. Yeah.
That's terrible. And they'll get other people, especially bring in a leadership position, they'll get other people doing that too. And you're like, what the heck just happened? You've just
Yeah.
lost your edge,
Right.
right?
Because those people who they can influence, of course, can relate because at school and wherever else they worked before, that did seem the right way to do things,
Yeah.
but it's not.
You have to recognize the reward structure in a corporate environment. You're climbing a ladder. It is about looking good to your superiors. That's also true in a bureaucracy.
Hmm.
And no risk. It's really about mitigating and minimizing risk. And
Yeah.
usually, if you've got a big new idea, you've got one shot with the board to get it. And if it gets nixed, it gets nixed. That's not how it works in an entrepreneurial company. We're skunk works. We try stuff. We test. We experiment. Babs even explained this to me early in my career. She goes, oh yeah, no, we don't do things that way. We test, we iterate, we experiment. Like, what's the smallest, fastest, cheapest thing we can do? Test it in the marketplace, see if it goes anywhere, and keep going.
Hmm.
That's how we tested the team programs 30 years ago. She'd give me a name and I'd call them up and see if they wanted to send a team member to my program. That was fun. So that is the way of doing things. Again, it's about, do our clients love it? My clients are way smarter than I will ever be. Value is in the eye of your market. It's in the
Hmm.
eye of your client. To think that any of us know better than what our clients do, that is an arrogance that is dangerous. So people who don't have that market focus or even very research based as opposed to go out and testing, like I'm all for testing, and so is marketing is all about testing. But
Hmm.
are you testing on the check writers? How is it that you're actually going and do that? Are you running 18 focus groups? Are you going and talking to people?
Hmm.
So it's just a different process. And by the way, I'm really grateful that there are some corporations running out there. I love buying stuff from them. I'm all
Hmm.
good with that. But
Yeah.
for our own companies, you got to do a lot more putting things in place before you're at that level.
Right. But again, I mean, as we're talking, everything comes back to the maturity curve of a
Yeah.
business, right? So every business that exists today started first of all with an idea, and
Right.
then one person doing something, and then maybe adding the second, third, etc. And I think one of the reasons that strategic coach exists is to help leaders move through those phases, because again, as entrepreneurs, we get stuck doing things
Yep.
ourselves, and we
Mhm.
keep falling into that trap of, how do I do this and how do I do that,
Yeah.
which of course is why, you know the book Who Not How was
Yes.
written.
She's over there somewhere.
Yes, mine's behind me too.
There you go. Yeah.
And but again, but those are all the sort of the struggles and the mindset shifts and evolutions that we have to go through
Sure.
as entrepreneurs, and then so we have to go through those shifts ourselves first as leaders, and then otherwise we're not able to help the leaders around us to
Yeah.
go through that same shift. And I think that's, of course, so the maturity, I think, is really what has to evolve, because the clarity needs to shift. So the
Uh-huh.
clarity for the team,
Yeah.
and it really comes down to prioritizing based on where you are, what stage you're at as a business.
Yes, exactly. Then if there's one number one mindset that I think is important to focus on, and that is for yourself and for the people in the company, because as you're growing, some people will get you to, it's like mountaineering,
Yeah.
right? Some will get you to the stage one, stage two. Not everyone's going to summit with you.
Hmm.
Right. So the growth mindset is the most important. So growth versus fixed mindset, brilliant book Mindset by Carol Dweck, which people are probably familiar with.
Hmm.
When you have that growth mindset, it supports all the other ones, right? Because it's all about, okay, what can I grow? What can I shed? It was fun because actually in the workshop, I never do this, but I'm like, okay, in particular, Chinese astrology, it's a year where time to shed things before you embrace the new. What do you want
Hmm.
to let go of? Is there an old mindset, an old way of being, an old something that made you that bothered you? You're like, I'm just gonna get over it, right? Like, what is it? And that willingness to grow and to let go older versions of yourself. You
Hmm.
want that for you as the
Hmm.
owner, founder, leader. You also not want that for your team. And that's who's going to stick with you for 35 years.
Hmm.
And there's other people who stop, and that's okay too. Just recognize that and make sure that they have an off ramp that's good,
Yeah.
which is why I wrote multiplication by subtraction, which is a graceful way to exit wrong fit team members. And
Hmm.
some people who were right fit at the beginning aren't right fit anymore.
Right.
And that's okay. You can
Sure.
still love them. They're still good people. They just are not necessarily on this part of the journey with you. And maybe some of them will actually outgrow you. That's another
Yes.
possibility. Or they're going a different direction. But I love talking about mindset. And I think if you want to boil it down to one, it would be growth. And
Mm.
that's why you're in coach. That's why I'm here. That's the number one thing to focus on. Growing with other people who have that same mindset is so much fun. It's such a joy. And that makes the journey completely worthwhile, in my estimation.
Yeah. Yeah. I did a post on LinkedIn where I actually credited you
Oh,
as one of the people who inspired it, which again was, we've sort of leaving behind the year of the snake, and
yeah.
shedding all the things that go with that, and moving into this year of the fire horse, which with all the energy and opportunity that
Mm,
comes with that, which if when you think about it, it's like a snake, or any creature that has to shed its skin to grow,
yeah.
that they wouldn't be able to grow if they couldn't do that.
No. And it's not easy. We get from rather attached to those things.
Yes.
They've been with us for a long time. So
Right.
it's not and they talk about Year of the Snake as being it's a hard year. It's not necessarily easy. Like
Mm,
full of my year had some incredibly busy, great, huge new wins and some incredible challenges.
mhm.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm happy it only happens once every 12 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know how many people we were in the room last week, but
44.
44. I think we all resonated and we all felt the same way about 2025.
Exactly.
It was one of the best years in many ways, but also one of the hardest years, definitely one of the hardest years.
Me too.
But again, this is how we learn, right? We reflect
Yes.
on what those hardships taught us and how we can do things better going forward.
Uh-huh.
So Shannon, so the growth mindset, let's just stick with that for a little bit. So how do you design systems that support growth without becoming burdensome?
Oh, smiling a little bit, asking how I design systems because I'm a to and follow through in Colby.
So you and me
That
together,
might
yeah.
be a strong word.
Yes.
I think of it as how do I design tools and concepts I'll use the word structures. Let me put it this way. And it actually goes back to a word that you just said. One of the ways people don't grow without reflecting. Otherwise, you're just repeating the same experience over and over again. Like you've met
Mhm.
people in a career for 20 years and they've had 1 year's experience. Repeat it
Yes.
20 times. You're like, yeah, you didn't really learn anything, did you? And
Mhm.
other people are growing by leaps and bounds. And Cy Wakeman has a brilliant way of articulating this. So she wrote No Ego, reality based rules for the workplace, a bunch of other things. Highly recommend. And I did a really fun podcast with her. Poor thing, I kept her on quite long. I'm like, what about this? What about that? She goes, I got to go. But I wanted to get all the value because she's so wise. But one of the things she talks about is you do not learn without reflecting.
Mm,
And coach is full of this, and we reflect back on your progress. We reflect back on what you learned. We never ever have people like wallow in the difficulties. That's not useful. But
mm,
what value can you extract from it? What have you learned about what you're going to do more of, what you're going to do less of? What can you do differently next time? And so what I do is, especially in my ongoing leadership program, the team leader program, is people come back every quarter. And that is the system part.
mm,
Learning and change is not in a one shot event. It's not in out, nobody gets hurt.
mhm,
It happens over time. And that's why the workshops that you're in are also quarterly. And then there's obviously check ins in the quarter if you want. But the very minimum, you put your butt in a seat with other entrepreneurs or other, in my case, leaders, and reflect on your experience and then figure out how you want to move ahead. So the other way that I would say I contribute to this is helping people simplify their complexity. And I actually think this is what all people who create value do. Like something that is super complex for other people, you're like, I know the path through. And then if we're purchasing something, we want someone else who's going to simplify something for us that we find hard and we find
mhm,
complex, right? So simplifying people's complexity. So I love doing that with anything to do with teamwork, anything to do with entrepreneurial leadership. Don't ask me about any other kind because I have no idea. Anything to do, I mean, I'm a profile junkie. Like I've collected so many tools and so many strategies to help people be more effective to move themselves and their businesses ahead. So I just bring them all to bear. So and the quarterly workshop structure is the one that gives me a focus, gives me a time to do that. And then when I'm working with teams individually, so I will work with companies as well. We call them on-sites, and these are coach clients.
mhm,
So I will design a system where I'm working with them every quarter. I've got a new client in Dubai. Unfortunately, I'm not there. I'm doing it virtually. But anyway,
mm,
I've been to Dubai and
mhm,
saw the same person actually, the same entrepreneur
oh,
who's amazing. But I'm working with them every 2 months to kind of teach them the business tools that their entrepreneurs learning and coach so that they can not only keep pace, but run along with and maybe even ahead of their entrepreneur. So
mhm,
it's no longer, him just tossing crazy ideas over his shoulder and they're trying to catch them. So, but it's really setting up. I don't really do a lot of one-offs anymore. I do tend to do either 2 months or 3 months structures where people know they're going to be coming back and reflecting. I'm doing that with the new leadership program I've developed as well. So that is the system part of it. And
right.
then I tend to orient, as I was talking to you before we hit record, around three different areas. So as I'm helping people grow and develop, especially in their leadership, I've finally, after 30 years of coaching teams, hit on what I think is the system that makes sense. So one is to help people increase their self-awareness. Know thyself to me is super important. I have one rule that I trust people to the degree that I think they know themselves.
Mhm,
That's my rule about people.
Hmm.
Some people know themselves really well. Some people have no clue. Then if you have no clue about yourself, neither do I.
Right.
That's my rule. Someone says, I'm not good for you. I believe them. Like it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, no, self awareness is number one. Then team awareness. It is
Mm.
not automatic that just because you know how you operate, that you're actually going to give that same grace to anybody else. Hopefully, you get super curious. So, team awareness, how do people work together? What motivates people? What's their motivational imprint? How do they naturally strive? How does their mental energy play out? Where in a process do they like to play? Working Genius is a profile I'm very fond of and certified in. But
Yeah, we use that too. Yeah.
I love it.
We love it.
So useful and describes what brings you joy and what frustrates you.
Yes.
And so it just makes people make sense. So that team awareness is critical. But then there's also strategies. So actually, your listeners can access it on my yourteamsuccess.com website. I have a download of things like the communication builder. What's the best way to give and receive information? So you can know yourself, but it's you in relation to others where
Mm.
things get interesting,
Yes.
right? So that's useful to know. And then finally, if you're going to be a good leader and frankly, a good team member too, you need to be business aware. What are the core values of the company? What is the vision of the company? What are the metrics that are important? Are there some things you need to know? It's interesting. My daughter, who's 22, just started a job at a fertility clinic.
Hmm.
And the amount of medical training they give her is unreal. Our dinner conversations are hysterical. Well, let me tell you.
I'm
There
sure.
are no secrets anymore.
Yeah.
We can all talk about reproductive things very well now, which is
Which is
really
great, right?
I
Yeah.
I it's great. Actually, I kinda love it. And she's educating us, which is also lovely. But, you have to if she didn't care or wasn't able to learn that stuff, she would not be a very good contributor to the company. And
Mm.
it's a fast-growing entrepreneurial medical business, right?
Mm.
That's what they do, and they do a great job. And so it's fun, like, you have to be cognizant of that too. You can't just like, "Oh, I know myself so well. That's nice." What difference does it make? Like, do you know how other people operate? Do you know how you can use your talents to best serve the business and your clientele?
Hmm.
When you focus on those three things, and all of us are going to have strengths in certain areas more than others, and there's other things we want to develop. But really, that is the kind of finally the system that I have ascertained, discerned.
Mm.
I'm not even sure what the word is, kind of makes sense. And it's great because then I can plug and play all my concepts, all my tools, all my profiles into those three buckets. Some overlap. And it's really fun. So that's the model I've been playing with lately.
Yeah, I really like that. And it actually speaks directly to my personal journey and why I joined Strategic Coach whenever it was like 5 years ago, I think it was. I have like so many of us have a annual theme.
Mhm.
And my theme the year that I joined Strategic Coach was Know Thyself. So again, uh, there was nothing strategic about it. I just felt that I needed to be really self-aware before I could help my team and then of course be value to the business.
Oh,
The way you're thinking about that makes a lot of sense
thank
from
you.
my perspective.
Yeah, and I think it was kind of there all along. I just uncovered it. Is kind of
Yes.
what happened. A little bit like how Patrick Lencioni talks about working genius. He goes, "I didn't create it, I uncovered it."
Yes.
Right? Like
After
it was
20 years
there.
of working with clients, he
I
realized
know.
what made some successful and others struggled.
And himself too, because he was like, I love, in his case, invention discernment. But because he's founder of the table group, everyone looked to him to galvanize.
Well, and also,
Like,
I was in Vistage at the time that he launched Working
yeah,
Genius, and I think that was one of the first places where he
yep,
launched it.
yeah.
So I sort of had a front row seat, and I remember him doing this presentation to the entire Vistage community, and he shared how at Table Group they didn't have a W on their
Mhm,
leadership team, and so many of the, or at least so many of their clients were missing the W, which is my number one
mhm.
working genius. And if you don't, so if you don't have the genius of wonder on a team, on a leadership team, that with the goal where they're trying to grow, there's nobody sort of pushing and wondering what's next, right?
Yes, very true. And I think
Whereas, yeah,
a lot of a lot of leadership teams actually.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. Which again, if you're running a system, and we do a lot of work with franchises, and so one of the obvious sort of innate attractions for franchisees to buy a franchise is because they're buying a system that they know works, and all they got to do is run it. You don't need a W to
They
buy
may
a
not want one.
franchise. Yes.
They might mess things up. Yeah.
Right. But I'm guessing the people who created franchises in the first place, they probably had some W in there somewhere.
It's interesting with that one because I thought Dan Sullivan for sure would have wonder. He does not. He's
Hmm.
invention discernment like I am. But I realized, and one
Like
of his,
Lencioni too.
yes, exactly. But then I realized Dan has a brilliant way of figuring out what's needed. So we have this great question called the R factor question.
Hmm.
If you and I were meeting here 3 years from today, looking back over those 3 years, what has to have happened for you both personally and professionally for you to feel really happy with your progress? Right? So that's a future-based result that is up to that person. And then that we have ways of fleshing that out relative to that future, what are you worried about? Your dangers. What are you
Hmm.
excited about? Your opportunities. And what are you confident about? Which are your strengths? Well,
Right.
that paints a whole picture. And then I don't know about you, but my invention kicks right in. I'm like, well, then this, and then this, and then this, and we could do that. Right.
Right.
So Dan, I felt like, aha, I figured out where he gets his inspiration for what he's going to invent is from someone else's bigger future, right? What
Mm.
they're wondering about, what they could do, which is kind of fun. So there are ways of getting some wonder, good questions, if you don't have it naturally installed. But it's funny talking about the process because Dan's been talking about people who are visionaries, project managers, and process managers. And then one day in a workshop popped in my head, make it up, make it real, make it recur,
Mm.
which maps to
Yeah.
the
We
ideation,
use that all the time. Yeah.
the activation, and the implementation. I'm like, why didn't I think?
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm really glad he did. He got it way bigger than I would ever do. Anyway, so it maps to everything that I know as well.
Hmm.
So, ideation is wonder, invention, make it up. The next phase is activation, discernment,
Hmm.
galvanizing, and then that's make it real. And then you've got implementation, which is the enablement tenacity. By the way, it took me way too long to realize that the acronym was widget.
Oh, really?
Everyone's having trouble remembering it. That's the acronym.
Well,
Uh,
that's your low fact finder. Yeah. Or
must be
your short
a
fact
short
finder.
fact finder, very good. Yeah, and that to me is the make it recur. And it maps to my experience. He discerned it from his experience. It just makes sense, and it's the only teamwork tool. I sent my favorite profiles to my friend the other day, and there were 17 of them. And so I've done a lot of profiles. This is
Hmm.
the only one that actually is the teamwork one because it
Yes.
describes that every process requires every letter
Yep.
and you're going to have two that bring you joy, your genius, two of which you're competent, okay, feel okay about it, and
Hmm.
then two which frankly frustrate the you know what
Yes.
out of you. And so,
Which of course aligns perfectly with how you think about unique ability too, right?
yeah, it totally does. So anyway, it's fun when you have another tool from a completely different organization that is so aligned. To go
Right.
back to that word, it's been great. So yeah, so I
Yeah.
got had to get certified in that too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm looking. Yeah, again, we use it all the time. Also because it's just it's a faster, sort of more what's the word I'm looking for? So it's sort of a more global,
Yep.
quick look at a situation or a person and how they fit into a team. But if you think about everything that you just talked about, again, just with through the lens of people who make it up, people who make it real, and people who make it recur, it brings us full circle that it's a team. You need a team, right? And everybody needs to understand, first of all, what they're good at
Mhm.
themselves, how they then fit within the team, assuming that they're partnering with some people who make it up, some people who make it real, and other people who make it recur, which again is foundational to what we do and what every other. I mean, so we're in the business of implementing revenue systems for franchises,
Yes.
but the only way we can, which so a lot of people when they first hear about what we do, they think, oh, we do technology implementations.
Mm.
We cannot do technology implementations if the foundation of the people is not there first. So we talk about it's people, process, data, and technology
Right.
are the four pillars of revenue operations, which is what we
Mm.
do. But if the foundation of the people piece, which is leadership, clarity, vision, values, if that is not stable, for us to be successful and for our client to be successful with whatever system we could build for them
Right.
is going to be really hard and for them to get the value from it.
It's so interesting because people often want the systems to replace the people,
Mm.
right? People look arbitrary, they look hard. It's challenging. There's
Right.
people issues, right? All the things. People are like, can't we just have a process that just does it? I'm sure. I mean, actually, with population numbers the way they're going, have to replace people with technology. But I'm sure
Hmm.
that's sometimes the appeal. It's like someone who doesn't need a coffee break, isn't going to take time off for vacation when you've got technology that will do it. However, Dan's definition of technology is really interesting. He calls technology is automated teamwork. I think it's such a cool way to think about it. It's teamwork that's been so stabilized that you can now program it.
Hmm.
However, last time I checked, new things happen just about every day. And
Hmm.
if we want, how technology can't respond to that, it can only repeat what's already been done. And so you need the people to create the new systems and the new structures and to make things recur, even though the system's broke, right? We have to appreciate the uniqueness that humans bring to solve problems.
Yes.
This is what we do. Dan and I Dan and his team, of which I'm a fairly important part, we create a book
Very.
every 90 days. He goes, "You are not a computer." It was one of the books, right? Humans are not good information processors. Please leave that to machines, but we are storytellers and we are creative and we are problem solvers. And
Hmm.
so the people part is so vital. And when you have the right person in the right seat, to use an EOS term, if you were placed in doing an enablement tenacity role, Brennan, you'd be so unhappy.
Yes.
Same with me.
Good point.
Tenacity and wonder are my frustrations. Don't make me do that.
Hmm.
If you put me in a follow through role, I'm an excellent reader. My mom taught me to read when I was 3, and yet in libraries I pass out. They're
Hmm.
exhausting.
Hmm.
Right? So, and I've got a good brain, so that's not the problem. But
Yeah.
it's just like, don't make me research. And so when you place people in the right place, they become self-managing. They don't
Hmm.
need as much hand-holding. They don't need being told what to do every 5 minutes. They don't need all that many corrections. Your job, to go back to our beginning, is to give them a really powerful direction. Why are we here? And then
Yes.
you go, and you watch
Right.
them do some magic. So the people part has, as I talked about, been my passion forever. And I love when I can find other people who get it the same way. So this is a joy for me. I think a lot of those people problems can go away when you increase yourself and team awareness, because then you're like, oh, this person's just in the wrong seat. If I move them over here, they'll start to shine.
Hmm.
We've had people, like, it's amazing because Strategic Coach started before we did any of these profiles. I mean, we did do Colby pretty quickly, but
Yes.
still, it's like people were placed willy nilly. No wonder they were only partially successful.
Right.
And then you move them to align with their talents and skills with how they naturally strive and what they're motivated for. You watch, again, magic happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the people part cannot be overlooked, and it doesn't have to be as hard. There are tools, there's profiles, there are ways of thinking about things that can really help.
Right. But I guess, as you're sort of saying that they have to be put in place in a deliberate way, right?
Yes. Yes.
So that everybody realizes that they have access to these tools and why these tools are so helpful to the individual, to the team, and then to the company as a whole.
Yeah, exactly.
Which again, it comes back to but the company and the leadership has to be at a certain level of maturity
Mhm.
to really be able to prioritize that.
Yes, very much. There's another model, again, 3, in case this is helpful. One of the things I learned from Colby when I was first getting certified, 1995, was there's 3 parts of the mind. So the cognitive, school, training, intelligence, all the things. And by the way, most education, we tend to override everything else with our brains. You're like, I can learn this. Yes, you can, but do you actually want to? Right? So there's a cognitive bias towards a lot of things.
Mhm.
So we've got our cognitive. We don't actually test for that. But you can tell pretty quickly, I hope.
Mhm.
I used to think
Mhm.
everyone was kind of the same. And then one time someone's personality was the right fit and how they took action was the right fit and they still weren't successful. I'm like, oh, maybe that other part is important.
Mhm.
I was in my 40s when I figured that out. Way too long. Anyway, so cognitive is important. Then you've got the affect, which is the feeling, the preferences. So most of the profiles that people are familiar with, Clifton Strengths, DISC, Myers-Briggs, Working Genius, Print, they're all in the heart realm. So you've
Mhm.
got, can you do it? Do you want to do it? Are you passionate about it? And Kathy Colby said, everything starts with motivation. If you're not motivated, nothing else matters. And then finally, you get to how you actually strive and take action, how your mental energy plays out. So head, heart, and hands is one way that I'd say head,
Mhm.
heart, and gut, but that's a little hard to draw. So
Right.
head,
Yes.
head, heart, and hands. And so when you line those up, when someone's skill matches what they're passionate about, matches with how they naturally strive and take action, you've got a healthy, happy, productive human being.
Mhm.
So that's what I endeavor to do at an individual level. And that's what I intend to string together on a team level to make a company just take off.
Yeah. It does sound like nirvana, doesn't it?
It does, and it's always a work in progress, but you can
Sure.
go from like a 50% throwing spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks, to an 80% way of looking at it. So people are doing what we would say they're excellent and unique at, not what they're competent or incompetent at. That's not how an entrepreneurial company is going to win. They're going
Yeah.
to win by being excellent and unique. So the more we can do that on an individual level and on a team level, and you start playing to people's strengths, it's actually not that hard. It does require a shift in mindset from anyone can do anything they put their mind
Hmm.
to a point, but
Yeah.
how sustainable is that? When you actually start to craft it a little bit more, it
Hmm.
becomes way easier, it takes way less energy to manage, far
Yes.
less work.
Especially, and to your point, especially if they're motivated towards doing more of this, whatever you need them to do.
Yeah. Like our team takes initiative on stuff. I'm like, whoa, I never would have thought of that.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Shannon, if you have a couple minutes, I've got more. But I'm going to ask you one more question.
Yeah. No, you ask as many as you like.
Okay. We started. We went from this incredibly important foundation of all the people and team and leadership sort of topics that, again, without those, really a business will flounder unless they're really lucky or unique in a way that I haven't seen before. But
Okay.
and then we started talking about sort of technology and what that could do to help businesses who have figured that out sort of scale more effectively and make better and faster decisions. How do you see entrepreneurial teams evolving as technology and now AI more specifically
Mhm.
become everyday collaborators?
Actually, just thinks it turns up the dial on speed. That's really what I think. Like an AI empowered human. See, here's the thing. Here's my premise. And again, I don't spend much time in corporate or bureaucratic environments. So I can read about them, but I don't spend any time there on purpose. So
Mhm.
who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. But my limited experience and or people I know that work there, there's a limited buy-in to AI because they don't want to rock the boat too much. They don't want to change the systems. But what I notice with companies that are aggressive is not the right word, but when the ones are really strategic, real companies kind of by definition move faster, right? They adopt quicker. They're not hopefully mired down in, well, we've always done it this way. No, we're we're in the results economy. And this is a model that when I point out to team members, we were talking about attitudes earlier. When I point out to team members, they're like, we're in the results economy. The goal in the results economy is to maximize the results and minimize the time and effort required. What does AI do? Minimizes the time required. I was doing research today, took seconds that otherwise I would have been 20 years ago opening an encyclopedia or
Right.
something,
In
right?
which case you would just not do it.
Pretty much. I do it for 5 minutes and then
Yes.
distracted
Right. Yeah.
by another more interesting article, not on
Yes.
topic. Yes, 100%. And so that's the results economy. Entrepreneurial companies are in the results economy. So we're not in, you were talking about the time and effort economy. Time and effort economy is, and I once as a cashier had to be part of a union and punched a time clock. It didn't matter how fast I was. All that mattered was I was there during my required hours and that I put in the effort, not the quality of the effort that mattered. People who'd been there way, way longer and were way, way slower got paid way more than I did. Didn't
Mhm.
matter. It's time and effort. So I
Yeah. So
passed
it's
my
so it's essentially it's just a declining value model. Yeah.
yeah. So that is not us. You can put it if you entrepreneurial companies know this. You've gone hard to get a big deal. You put in the time, you put in the effort, you've done the proposal, you've done the presentation, you've done the RFP and all the rest of it, and you don't get it. And it's interesting. This is a bit of the conflict between entrepreneurs and team members sometimes because the team's like, but we put in all the time and effort. And the entrepreneur's like, but we didn't get the result. They're both right.
Mhm.
And I tell team members, you get paid every 2 weeks. Like you have the stability and the security of a job.
Mhm.
Not a bad thing. Counterable paychecks are good.
Mhm.
Entrepreneurs don't have that. They've crossed the risk line and they're now in the results economy. They take their security out of opportunity. They would consider a job risky because
Mhm.
someone could decide they're not needed anymore. And
Right.
so, but I say to team members, even though you're paid every 2 weeks, you need to be looking to the results. If you take your eye off that ball, you probably don't have a job for much longer. Right. And so
That's really good
it's,
advice.
yeah. So we're all in the results economy. That means, and this is one of our standards, we want things faster, easier, bigger, and better. So, how can you make your own work? How can you reduce the amount of time it takes you to do something? How can you speed things up? That can be through technology, that can be through teamwork, really good processes.
Mm.
How can you take out some steps that are redundant now? Right? Don't get married to anything. If there's a better way to do it, that'll free you up to do more fun stuff. And there needs
Mm.
to be a confidence and an optimism that there is an even higher and better use of your brain and your
Hmm.
creativity and your intelligence. In an entrepreneurial company, that's true because it's growing,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So team members have to know that they're in the results economy. And so AI is just like someone just gave you, I don't know about you, but I'm a kid in a candy store with stuff.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
I'm like, "Ooh, what can I do with Perplexity? What can I do with chat? How many bots can I make?" All this done my writing bot.
Yes.
It's next I'm like, I haven't quite wrapped my head around agents yet, but that's the next thing. And I still love my humans, don't get me wrong. But
Yes.
it's like stuff that I find hard, which is a lot. I'm like, the future's looking brighter. Like I remember when I first got my iPhone.
Yes.
He's my husband. Right? When I first got my iPhone, I'm like, oh my God, someone just made my life so much easier. I did more than Steve Jobs because I'm like, he made such a difference to my life. Because
Hmm.
as a long quick start, short fact finder follow through, getting information and directions and all those things was painful. Now it's
Yeah.
easy. Now it's
Yes.
fast.
That's
Right?
actually yes. I mean that's funny you mentioned the iPhone because there were in 2008 there were a couple of things that were going on. One was a global financial crisis. The other one was the fact that we now had iPhones and Facebook.
Yeah.
And that was the time. So because of the global financial crisis, we actually lost the real estate business that we had
Yeah.
started,
Wow.
which then led to the creation of Dynamico, which have I've been doing since then. But that the iPhone, Facebook, and of course the internet that was already moving pretty quickly was what created this breakthrough opportunity
Huge.
for so many of us. But the one constant, of course, is that we need to continue to evolve. So as technology evolves, we need to evolve with it as businesses because our customers are going to evolve
Yep.
because they can use it, which means we need to evolve so that we can stay connected to our customers.
Exactly. So that growth mindset is really important and being strategic because what you don't want to do is you don't want to commoditize yourself, right? So it means you are going to commoditize those things and your clients are too, right? So then you have to separate can't they get from chat? What can't they get from a large language model, right?
Yes.
What can't they get from notebook LLM? And then what is the unique value that we can provide? And Dan has an interesting expression. He goes, I always keep a smart human between me and technology.
Hmm.
Although if I've seen the way he uses Perplexity, he may change his stance on that a little bit because
Right.
he uses it a lot.
Right.
He treats it like a friend. It's a riot. It's very nice. Perplexity is really
But
kind.
he's not the only one, I'm sure.
Oh, I know. Yeah, especially when you name them, it's like, there's the person.
Yes.
But it's like our clients still want coaching. They s- almost, Dan said, coaching is to the 21st century what managing was to the 20th. And I think that is
Absolutely.
so spot on. So,
Absolutely.
where can you coach your clients? And then how can you be supported on delivering that value using every AI you can get your hands on?
Yes.
Right? So that's my look at it. And I do think it separates though. I do think it's an accelerator and the team members who have invested probably their own time, maybe their own money in learning AI and getting very capable with it will far outshine someone who's like, "Oh, I'm scared of it." I shouldn't make fun of them. Sorry. But it's like they're just timid. That gap is going to widen and companies who are absorbing it and quickly and making use and figuring out what works, what doesn't, and iterating quickly, they are going to outshine other people. So I do think it's not have and have nots. That would be weird. But it's like the quick learners versus the not. We're
Mm.
going to see a big spread. I think there's an opportunity for people who really grab it. And I
Yeah.
think if people don't, any technology, just by the very function of Moore's Law,
Yes.
there's a four
Well,
times
it's the adoption curve, right? It's
exactly.
yeah.
But with the speed of AI, it's that much quicker. So
Yeah.
what used to take a year and a half or 3 years, you're going to see the difference in 2 to 6 months. So
Yeah,
that's
if
what
not less.
it's fun talking about it. I haven't it's been in the back of my head and it hasn't been in the front, but that's why I just want people to fail forward, fail fast, learn quickly, don't get freaked out, make it work for you,
Yeah.
right? Use it to enhance your humanity, not the other way around. I think there's a ton of opportunity if people would simply see it.
Yeah, just momentum, forward motion is what solves most things. So,
Exactly.
Shannon, to wrap up, what is one practical step leaders can take this week to strengthen alignment and momentum?
Oh my gosh, alignment and momentum. Well, get clear on your vision for yourself. If you want to follow the Chinese astrology, when we're recording this, the year of the horse is imminent. So
Yes.
figure out what direction you're going in might be a good one. And then share that with your team. Don't keep it a secret. That would be one. And then know thyself. So if you haven't done your Colby profile, go do your Colby. And if you're like me, do the people around you. I profiled Bruce before I married him.
That's funny.
And we're going this year, this summer's 30 years. So that was a good strategy.
Wow.
And so know thyself. And then probably a really simple, fun, like 5-minute tool would be the communication builder. It's a simple way to get teamwork alignment in how
Hmm.
you do things because people strive very differently. Some people are morning people or some people are not. We're just actually quite different and we tend to assume other people are like us. So
Yeah.
the communication builder is pulls that from the unconscious or subconscious to the conscious level, and then you can compare notes. What do you need when you're tired? Is the best way for you to communicate like face to face, like we are?
Hmm.
Or do you want it in writing? Are you a morning person or an evening person? And it's weird how those simple, subtle things actually make a massive impact on how you feel about someone working with them. And
Mm.
so realizing how you're similar and how you're different, 5 minutes. But we recommend that we do that at the beginning of any new hire that I work with. And Kathy Davis, whom you know, just started doing it with Katrina, who's doing some scheduling for her. And you're like, now I get it. So super
Hmm.
simple, 5 minutes. It will help your teamwork alignment. No question.
Okay. We'll put a link to the communication builder
Yeah, it's
in
yourteamsuccess.com. Just download the little care package and off you go.
awesome. Shannon, thank you so much. I know we could probably chat for another hour, but
Be good.
this was incredibly valuable to me, and I'm sure to everybody listening. So thanks again.
Thank you so much. I had delightful conversation.